Hey guys. So, talk about today is what it was like to be a single parent while also being in a relationship. For me, it was. I'm not gonna say it was hard. It had challenges. There were things that were difficult, but it wasn't hard. My partner made it pretty streamlined, really easy. Um, Early on, I introduced my son to Chris really early on. I know some people say don't introduce them right away. Hold off. Don't introduce them because the kids will get attached. They won't stick around, and then the kids will be left wondering what happened. And I understand where that thought comes from. The only difference was for me, I knew um, pretty early on that Chris was gonna be the one that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I know that's pretty profound to say, but I did know it. I did feel it really in my bones. Just this was the guy. And so I didn't have any kind of qualms as far as not introducing him, and if I did introduce him as a friend, not like as a significant part of his life, because I knew he was going to be. And they they hit it off just the same as me and Chris did. When they met, they were buddies, they were best friends. They did a lot of stuff together. When Chris would come over, they would throw the ball outside, they would kick the soccer ball, they would play badminton, they would do Hot Wheels and Legos and anything else that he was really interested in. Chris made a point of being present in that with him, and showing an interest in the things that he enjoyed. Um, we did a lot of things together, um, because with a relationship, it does require commitment as far as spending time with each other, getting to know each other, learning things about one another. And these are things that we had to do while also keeping in mind that we had another small person that we had to include. So we kind of did everything 50-50. And what I mean by that is we would spend time together where it was just me and him. That would be going to the movies, that would be going out to eat, that would be, doing some kind of activity that was just kind of for us. So it was time that we could spend connecting to one another. Um, but we also had to make sure that we did include Gabriel. So, the times that it was just me and him, my mom would step in. She would, you know, I would leave Gabriel with her. She would take care of him, however long I needed. And then me and him would go out. But we did include him in stuff, and it would be stuff that would be something that he would enjoy. So that would be going to the zoo, going to the movies, going to Chuck E. Cheese. Those were things that we did together that we could enjoy, we could still connect, but it was also including Gabriel. And it gave them an opportunity for those two, for both the boys to connect as well. Where they had a chance to learn things about one another. Um, we at one point there was a time that we went. It was it was called a touch a truck, but essentially it was a large gathering. It was kind of like a festival, but they brought in a bunch of very large vehicles, from fire trucks to big rigs to military tanks and everything in between. So it was a boy's dream to see all of these, gigantic trucks and vehicles. And we got to do that with Gabriel, and it was fun for me. I'm not gonna lie, it was fun for me, it was fun for Chris, it was fun for Gabriel. So all in all, it was great for all of us. But a lot of those a lot of those vehicles would make very loud sounds, sirens. Um, there was a helicopter that they did have on site as well. And it was at a time when Gabriel was having a really hard time with noises. He A lot of the times if he was out and he heard a loud noise, he would cover his ears, because the noise was so overstimulating to him that it would either scare him or it would hurt his ears, whatever it may be. He did not like it. And that was something that early on Chris had to learn, that the noises and sounds, that he was sensitive to those things. And he's gotten better about it. There's still different quirks about him that my husband has had to learn about, but those were things early on that these opportunities gave them a chance to learn about each other. That would be when the time when, they had the vehicles, they had like old-fashioned vehicles. And that's when my son kind of learned that my husband really likes old-fashioned vehicles. He likes the old-fashioned cars. So they both got to make that connection. Um, we did a lot of things early on together. Me and him and Gabriel. It was just kind of trying to figure out exactly what worked to progress our relationship. Um, when we first got together, he was working at a rehab facility. It was a drug rehab facility, that he lived on site. Uh, and at that time, I couldn't very well go and say, "Hey, let's hang out at your place." His place was a rehab facility, and it wasn't a place that I would have been comfortable staying at. One, they had rules, so I wasn't allowed to be in the building anyways. But it was an all-male facility, so it wasn't a place that he felt comfortable inviting me to, which I totally understood. So a lot of the times, he would come over to our house to visit. Now, with our work schedules and how everything worked out, and then the distance between us, because he's only in Houston, but it was still a significant drive for me because I had Gabriel, and I always had to make arrangements, either take him with me or leave him with my mom. Now, at the time, he didn't have a license, he didn't have a vehicle, um, and that was just something that we had to deal with, something that he has overcome. He has, since then he's got a license, got a vehicle. But at the time he did not. So it was a lot of me going to him. Um, and I would have to go to Houston, get him, bring him back, and then as far as leaving, I would again go to Houston, drop him off, and then return home. And that was a struggle. I definitely was not the biggest fan, but I was dedicated. I was committed, so I did that. Now, what we decided to do, to kind of ease that issue was, he didn't have his own space, and I stayed at home with my parents, so I kind of had my own space, but not really. So what we would do is on a Friday, and he would schedule this time off. On a Friday, he would come to our town, and he would stay in a hotel. It was a hotel in town. It was never anything super glam, but it was just something that was, a way for him to be close without him having to, have his own place. Which at the time was, he didn't make a lot at this rehab facility, so it wasn't financially feasible. But he would do that. He would come on a Friday, he would leave on a Sunday. And that way, those weekends, we would spend a large portion of time together. From the time I got off from work on Friday, I would get him, I would take him to whatever hotel he was checking in at, and then he would leave all his stuff, and then I would take him to our house. We would have dinner, and then I would drop him back off at the hotel. Saturday morning, I would go early. I would go pick him up. We would stop and get breakfast, bring it home for everybody, and then we would, spend those weekends doing something together, whether it was going to the zoo, whether it was going to the touch truck, whether it was going to Chuck E. Cheese, whatever it may have been. Those were weekends where we made the most out of the time that we had together. So that's what we did early on. And there were transitions from, when he did leave the rehab facility, and he was kind of out of a place to live for a while. And that was hard. When he left that place, it was right around the time that Harvey hit. It was a little before. Um, so he was kind of on his own, and he worked, at a trash facility for a while. He worked at a Mexican restaurant for a while. He worked at a Jack in the Box for a while, until he finally kind of stumbled into a job working with one of my coworkers' husbands. Um, and that was kind of his saving grace, where he finally had, a job that he was proud of. It was something that he could do. His goal was always to find a job that he could do to make enough money to support a family. Family is really important to him. It always has been. So when he found that, that was kind of a really proud moment for him, as far as the progress that he's made in his life, with jobs, things like that. But he would stay for the weekend kind of in town, and we would spend that time together, going out to eat or doing anything fun, me and him and Gabriel, however it worked out. Um, at first, we did have, right after we started dating, we did have an extended visit that we had. It was me and him. And what we did was we went out of town. We went to Texas Renaissance Festival. It's an amazing festival. We had a blast. I definitely recommend to everybody. I didn't get to take Gabriel only because it was so early on in our relationship. So we took that time, as far as the weekend, for it to just be me and him. It was just me and him. It was time for us to, let loose and have fun and get to know each other more. It was still a very new relationship. We started dating in at the end of July, and this was probably October-ish that we went. So it was still a very, very new relationship. But like I said, from very early on, I knew that he was going to be the one. So I didn't have any reservations as far as, not going. I was absolutely going to take advantage of that. Uh, Later on in the relationship, as it progressed, we uh, we started doing things as far as like trips together with Gabriel. Now, going out and about with the three of us, there was an understanding, really early on, and still even now, that I am mom, and what I say goes. So from the very beginning, even the smallest thing, like we would go out, we would have ice cream, specifically Munchies. So not even ice cream, frozen yogurt. But we would go out, and if I said you only get, one scoop, or you only get a small cup, then that's it. Though that's mom says, and what mom says goes. But I would allow them time for them to connect. So I would say, this is what you can have. And then he would go with Chris, and they would pick the flavors that they wanted, pick the toppings that they wanted. They would do all those little things together, to kind of help them connect. And from the very beginning, like I said, they hit it off. They were very, very close, very early on. And as time went on, we started doing those things bigger and bigger. So it was, you know, I would kind of distance myself. Not so much from Gabriel, but from getting in between that bond. So if we went out, I would kind of be hands off, and I would let them, in a very organic way, kind of create their own friendship. They learned a lot about each other. They figured out each other's quirks. They they know how to push each other's buttons now. But that was something that they did early on. And later on, when we took bigger trips, we didn't do that until my husband was comfortable enough that he felt he could kind of step into the role temporarily, as a parent, but also as someone that's responsible for him. First trip that we took, we went to San Antonio. So it was a trip that we were gone for a weekend, where we were away from my parents. My mom had a really hard time with that. She's not very good at being away from her grandbaby, but she did good. She let us have our time where we could connect as a family. So we went to San Antonio and, being in a different location and, stuff's happening a little bit faster there. My husband had to kind of take on the role of making sure that that my son is taken care of, making sure that my son is safe, but also discipline, because he can sometimes be a little rambunctious. He would have to tell him, buddy, you're acting crazy, pump the brakes. You need to get it together. And if he wasn't sure, he would always come back to me, "Hey, how do I handle this?" Or, "Hey, I'm not sure what to do about this." Or, "Hey, this is how I handle it. What do you think?" So he used me a lot as a sounding board for what my opinion was for his parenting styles, which I think he did really well. All things considered, he's a great learner. He's a great dad. And there were things early on that he had to learn, and it wasn't learning how to be a parent, it was learning how to parent like I like to parent. There's certain things that I do certain ways, and he had to learn those things, which for him was not always the easiest for him, but he did kind of always follow what I wanted him to, especially in regards to Gabriel. So, later on in the relationship, we took that trip to San Antonio. We went at one point to the what do you call it? The Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum, and they had so much fun, just the two of them. Watching them kind of have their own moment was absolutely wonderful. It was the best ever. So they made those connections. They made those bonds and that friendship. And I never worried um, that they would be that close. I knew that they would be that close. I always just kind of wondered what it would look like. Over time, it's grown and it's blossomed into a really beautiful relationship. So as far as dating, that was um, like I said, not hard. It was interesting. Now, going into the very end of our relationship, when we got engaged, um, that is something that my husband, he did not. I know that some people have seen like the little cute things where you ask the child before you ask the parent. He didn't ask my son if he could ask me to marry him. He didn't ask permission or anything like that. But when he proposed, he did include him. He did make sure that he was there when he proposed to me, when he asked me to marry him, which of course I said yes. In a heartbeat, I would never turn that down. And that day we did actually afterwards spend the entire day together, just kind of letting loose and having fun. So that kind of set the foundation as far as what our little family unit was going to be like. Um, so, that being said, that's just kind of what it was like being a single parent, but also having a relationship, balancing those two parts of my life simultaneously. Um, being mom, but also being babe. So, it was an interesting part of my life. We started dating in 2016, so my son was 3 at the time. We got engaged in 2019. So that was about 3 years later. Um, and planning a wedding, that was kind of a whole nother thing, but that was all on me. I did do that all on my own. Thank you very much. But it was a very rewarding experience as far as getting married. Um, So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. And next time we'll pick up right where we left off. So, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.